Hey guys, I figured I would walk you through part 3 of the vehicle brake service activity. From the responses I see so far, things are looking really good. You guys are getting this. So this next part, I just wanted to walk you through what I should have covered earlier as well, is each time that you do a page or a section, when you are done, make sure that no matter whether you filled in all the answers or not, you go all the way to the last page, just keep hitting next, and make sure you hit submit. Even if you're not done, that will send a copy of the responses to your email so that you can go back and edit it, because there's 2 sections left. The one that you'll be starting today, as well as next class, you'll do the last section. So I want to take a minute and go through this part 3 section, and this gets to be a little bit different than what some of you guys are familiar with, because we haven't really had our hands on a full brake service. I know there was 1 or 2 little demos, but and this one's going to take a little bit of research here, and I wrote this stuff out so that I hope that you guys read through that and it helps you a little bit. But some of the things that I'm asking you to do here is find the necessary tools and information that you need to get the job done. So for instance, when we bring a car into the service bay, we bring it up on the lift, you're going to grab a bunch of tools. When you're familiar with mechanics and you're used to working in a shop a lot, when you go and if you visit your mechanics, you'll notice that they can look at a bolt and just have a pretty good idea of what size it is, and be able to know whether it's metric or whether it's standard. And that's something that kind of comes with a little bit of time and experience and having looked at a lot of different bolts. But one of the nice things that you can do to make sure that you actually have the tools necessary to do this is you can try and research a job before you actually go to do it. So even though you've never done this before, try and find as much information as you can. You already went and you found brake pads, you found the parts that you need. Now it's time to find the tools that you need. So I wrote these couple of questions to help guide you to the opportunity to do that. So again, read through these instructions that are here, and I'm going to ask you things like caliper or caliper pin socket required, the size and the style of the socket. So here I want you to kind of find out, all right, you're going to go grab a wrench, or a ratchet handle with a socket. Which one do you need? Maybe it's metric, and do you have a metric set? So you want to make sure that before you start tearing your brakes apart that you know what you need. You'll find that something for the socket size, and then what is the torque value. So like putting the wheel on a tire, putting a wheel back onto a car, we often torque it to about 100. There is no real universal number to tighten these actual bolts to. And again, a good mechanic typically just has a feel for it and doesn't necessarily need a torque wrench. But it's a good idea to know, if you're not too familiar with it, know how much the torque setting is. And this is information that you can find out. So you go to put that bolt back in, you take a bolt out of the brake system, you go to put it back in, how much you torque it to. So it might be something like 35 foot-pounds. And I'm going to ask you that on both the caliper bracket and the pin, and I'll tell you how to kind of find some of that information to begin with. But before that, make sure that you kind of know what these items actually look like. So if you look at something here, when you go to pull a brake apart, you'll find a lot of different bolts back there, and these bigger ones are called the bracket bolts, and the smaller ones are called the pin or caliper bolts. I think I have another. So don't forget which one is which. You have a brake rotor. You have a caliper mount, or caliper bracket, sometimes it's called, and that is the section that actually holds the brake caliper in. And you have the actual brake caliper, which holds the brake pads and squeezes. It's the piston that squeezes the brake rotor. So knowing what those different parts are, the caliper mount always has 2 bolts, and the brake caliper always has 2 bolts holding it to the car, to the vehicle. So those total of 4 come out. The brake caliper bolts are usually going to be a lot smaller, kind of less torque than the caliper mount. The caliper mount tends to be some bigger, heavier duty bolts. So yeah. We'll get to that part tomorrow. So one of the things I wanted to tell you about was, where do you find this information? And some people have manuals. When you buy a manual for your car, that's an option. But the other option is do something like Google it. I've typed in 2015 Honda Pilot brake pad replacement, And when I search that, it gives me a lot of information about parts and whatnot. But what I'm really looking for is how to replace the brakes. And I'm hoping that somebody will give me a guide to that. And I remember looking back here, I happened to find one, this how to change the front disc brakes on a second generation Honda Pilot. So if I click on that, this looks like a guide that somebody made on their own. That was nice. Maybe they took information out of a manual, or wherever they got it, they just happened to do the job and then want to help somebody else to do the job. They wrote a guide on it. So are these the most reliable source? No, not necessarily. They're typically a good resource that you have to kind of see how well it's written, and if it looks professional enough, hopefully, or you know, they took the time to find the torque settings from the manual themselves and shared that with you, which is a nice option. Which, by the way, it's a nice idea to have a manual for a car, service manual. If you ever want to do any of this stuff, it walks you through all this stuff. So here it's going to tell you things. I'm just kind of scrolling through, and you know, it's going to tell you the tools needed to do this are 2 jack stands, a floor jack, a 17 millimeter socket on a 3/8 drive ratchet. So that's an example of, you know, finding what sizes that you need. The last time I looked through there, they tell you how to do this job step by step. And if I could see here, somewhere in here, it tells you, yeah, so it would be best to use a torque wrench. Continue tightening the bolts to 94 foot-pounds. So that would be, actually that's the car wheel lug nuts. But if you go back here, here we go, 53 foot-pounds of torque with the 17 millimeter socket. So those are examples of how to, you know, what size socket to use, where, and how much you torque it to. So that is the information that you need to get this section done. So if you can kind of, you know, start researching it. YouTube videos are going to be awesome. You might want to watch a YouTube video just how to change brakes on, you know, whatever car it is that you want to take a look at. So I'm sorry this one got a little bit longer, but I hope that helps you, you know, achieve this. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Until next time.